Good morning, everyone. I'm Jane Morgan, and thank you for joining us today for the Challenger Exploration Investor Webinar. Today, the company announced that it has secured a $22 million investment from a large North American listed resource fund at 30% premium. Additionally, the largest institutional shareholder has also committed to invest pro rata to its 12% shareholding via a $2.6 million placement at 5-day VWAP, increasing the combined funds raised to $2.47 million from two parties. Today, I'm joined by our Managing Director, Chris Canal, who will run through the investor presentation, which was lodged with the ASX this morning, followed by a Q&A session. I'll hand over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Jane. And everyone, thanks for logging on. And look, today I'll talk about our effectively a $25 million capital raising. We've managed to get done at an average of sort of almost 30% premium to market to two parties that will both have the stock, really for the next 4 or 5 years. Before I go through, just a quick sort of introduction to Challenger, if there's anyone new. 2 projects, both in South America. Lead project, Hualilan in San Juan, Argentina, tier 1 mining jurisdiction. We announced a 2.1 million ounce resource in June on Hualilan, open in all directions. A high grade core of 1.1 million ounces at almost 6 grams a ton. And some of the drill results there speak for themselves. And look, recent drilling, and this is one of the reasons we've committed to an additional 50,000 meters, is basically, what we're seeing here is the deposit's still wide open. We're getting some interesting hits, hundreds of meters north and south, and also some interesting new sort of areas in the field as we start field reconnaissance. El Guabo, our second project in Ecuador, sits 5 kilometers along strike from a 22 million ounce ore body. The results there, 257 meters at 1.4 speak for themselves. We think we've got the upper half of that system, and we end up with a tier 1 asset there as well in Ecuador. And, most importantly, we're now funded to achieve several sort of, value accretive milestones, and we've got a runway out into 2024. Capital raise. So effectively, as part of, what we've done is 2 steps. So firstly, Queensland Capital, a Canadian listed long only resource fund, have invested 22 million via convertible debentures, which convert at 25 cents or a 15% premium. Why QRC and why that structure? Single specialist investor like BlackRock, they've got a long-term time frame. They've made 5 or 6 debenture investments since they were listed. They've still got them all. Some of those are more than 3 times in the money, so they're not a seller to take profits. They've got a history of making follow-on investments as required, certainty of funding for us, and really strong money, the ability to basically go again in size. Their 2 largest shareholders are Jack Cowan, who owns 25% of QRC, and Andrew Forrest is a 25% shareholder of QRC. The other component, look, BlackRock put in $20 million at 28 cents, bought another 50 million shares on market, haven't sold any. We really could not talk to them about this and offer them pro rata participation. So BlackRock were happy to take their 12% of the funding and agreed to take that at a placement at market. What do we use the money for? So basically, resource upgrade on the 204,000 meters, which is now finished, end of this year, early next year. Then this raise will fund a scoping study based on that upgraded resource, an additional 50,000 meters of resource extension drilling at Hualilan, take the drill meters up to basically double the drill meters that are in the current 2.1 million ounce resource. You'll get a sort of second resource upgrade at the back end of that 254,000 meters. Ecuador, 25,000 meters of resource drilling on the main discovery zone, which is where the high grade are. It's also 100% owned. And then really we'll reevaluate El Guabo at the end of that. You won't see us spending 40 or 50 million dollars to drill out a 15 million ounce, 0.5 gram gold resource. We'll look at this resource and make sure that basically it will add value to shareholders before we do anything else. Milestones you'll see over the next 12 months and, fully funded for the next 12 months. And, this capital raise gives us a runway into sort of mid 2024. So, in Argentina, starting long lead items for mine development and construction, it will be Argentina's next mine. Yeah, we've started drilling water wells a couple of days ago, and camp construction will start towards the end of this year. You'll get an updated resource on the full 200,000 metres of drilling. I'd like to say that'll be December this year, depends on labs, either December or January next year. We'll use that resource to drop into a scoping study that will be finished second quarter 2023. And then really we'll finish the extra 50,000 metres of drilling in the same time frame. You'll get another resource upgrade. And then from quarter 3 onwards, we'll be straight into bankable feasibility study and permitting. In Ecuador, we've got 14, actually 15 as of this morning, holes that we finished. We're waiting on assays for. After one more hole with one of the rigs and finish the second hole, resource drill out on the main discovery zone starts. That will get us a resource to basically indicated and inferred. It'll give us a good idea of what that looks like, and it should be a multi-million ounce resource. You'll get that resource in quarter 2 next year, and then really contingent upon what's in that resource, how the market reacts, we may well turn around and get 2 to 4 rigs there and drill out the rest of the main soil anomalies up there. And we think right now, Julian, we can see where it ends up as a tier 2 asset at least, and we've got visibility on Ecuador being a tier 1 asset. Long-term plan, now that we're fully funded for the next 18 months, Hualilan is a special beast. There's the ability there to mine the high grade for the first 3 to 6 years, low capex, high cash flow, really low cost. That then funds us into a larger plant, fully funded, capex all paid for, where you'll still make quite a lot of money out of the lower grade material. That also then lets us, if you're doing 200,000 ounces a year of low cost gold production in Argentina, $1 billion capex to add 500,000 ounces a year or more is eminently doable. And look, our existing assets have the potential to create, something from 500,000 to 1 million ounce a year producer. Having said that, the management, we're all shareholders. Our interests are aligned with shareholders. Your management own 20% of the company between them. If a bid comes and it's full value, we're not going to stand in the way of it to protect a $1 million a year salary. No one earns $1 million. I'm on less than 300 Aussie. So look, we're going down the pathway of going into production, but when the inevitable approach comes, we're not going to dismiss it out of hand to try and protect salaries. So, shareholders will get an outcome one way or the other. The other thing that we'll talk about, a couple of things we haven't really touched on in Argentina. We haven't just been exploring. This year in the annual Argentina mining, we got the award for ESG. We've had a program there of creating jobs, sponsoring community businesses, drilling water wells. And what this basically means is there's a really strong social license for us to put Hualilan in production. We're not going to have the struggle getting a mining license. We're not going to have community opposition. Right now, the politicians and the community are desperate for us to get into production because they really need the jobs, and they also need the royalty and tax revenue. And then I suppose the other thing that it's probably now time to talk about, what we've been quietly doing in the background. We've now got 235 square kilometres of tenements formally granted, which is the blue. There's another 330 odd square kilometres in orange that's now been registered in our name. We're just going through the final process of agreeing work programs, and another 45 square kilometres in yellow that we've just started that will ultimately get awarded. So what we've done is we put together a 600,000 square kilometre district scale footprint in Hualilan. The only thing we don't have is that grey there, which is Glencore's ground. And why is this important? You can see the resource there. The current granted 235 square Ks covers the resource. It covers all the immediate extensions, 3 or 4 kilometres north and south. But deposits like Hualilan seldom occur in isolation. I got a call from an exploration manager this morning. They put some samples in from 2 to 3 kilometres north of where the Sanchez fault is, the other side of the power lines. There's some old workings there that weren't on the map where they look like they've got some high-grade material at surface. So, we've got to have that district scale footprint because there will be other Hualilans there. And right now we've been too busy to go exploring for them. Just quickly on the geology, been through this before. Effectively, we've got high-grade lodes of mineralisation, second deeper lode at Centerson. What we're finding now at Centerson, you can see the photo of a core there. That's hole 316 we drilled a year ago. We extended that hole last month. It drilled through 40 metres of massive sulphides. We're developing a big zone of high-grade mineralisation at depth at Centerson. We're now, 300 metres north of the Sanchez Fault off the top of the page, drilling through what looks like mineralisation, and some really interesting holes down south at Fleur de Julian as well. Here's another example. This is the current resource, high-grade core, 6 million tonnes at almost 6. And what we're seeing in the drilling that we've done since that resource, which based on 125,000 metres, we'll end up doing double that. We're going to see at least the same percentage of high grade material to low grade. That photo there is basically a photo of hole 685 waiting for assays. That hole's drilled 100 metres underneath the Magnata Fault and drilled through a 50 metre zone that had about 20 metres of massive sulphides in there. And on the right, we're showing you the resource at various cut-offs. Again, it doesn't matter what the gold price is going to be. The way the ore body works, it gives you the flexibility to dial in your own head grade. So it really will be a mine regardless of the gold price. And, I suppose, where are we expanding it? On the right, I've broken down what the resource looks like, the components of it. Sort of keys there, Magnata Fault, 400,000 ounces at almost 5. Centers on 300,000 ounces again at better than 5. And the sort of 5 main areas where we're expanding it and targeting, because we are seeing significant extensions: Magnata Fault along strike and at depth, Centerson big new zone at depth, this Verde deep skarn zone, which has got 170,000 ounces in there of high grade gold extending along strike, and north and south of the mineralisation as well. But you look at that, you double up the size of the Magnata Fault, you double up centres, and you're adding another 700,000 or 800,000 ounces of high-grade material there. And what we're seeing, that's potentially quite likely, not in this current resource upgrade, but still, we think now Wallilan may end up being a significantly large deposit. And just a couple of examples that's showing you where we are drilling now. Focus in just a couple of sections. So on the right, this is the blocks on the Magnata Fault there you can see. So really that hole potentially doubles the size of the Magnata Fault resource on that section. And then, this is the northernmost section of Verde Zone, right up the other side of the Sanchez Fault. We only had 2 holes in the resource. All of these holes now assays pending. It looks like this mineralisation is consistent and will keep extending to the north. And again, it's not just the 3.5 kilometres we know. This is the magnetic map. We think basically the mineralisation wraps around this big circular intrusive feature, which is one of 4 or 5 in our ground. And we simply haven't gone and explored those, simply because we've had too much to do in the current 3.5 kilometres. Really quickly on Ecuador. So basically, you can see a 22 million ounce ore body at Cangrejos sitting up there to the right, 4 Ks away. We've drilled 5 of 15 regionally significant gold in soil anomalies. All of those 5 are mineralised. We've now drilled another 5, and it looks like this, visually anyway, CVF, CVC and CVH on the left side don't look like they've got too much, which quite frankly is not necessarily a bad thing. It's all vacant ground to the left of those, and there were 3 or 4 Ecuadorian companies lining up to basically overbid for that ground and sell it back to us, and now we don't need it. Still confident with what we've got. We've got the main centre of the mineralisation, and really we can see where we get another Cangrejos in our current ground, so we don't need to go chasing new ground. The resource drill out. So this is this main discovery zone here in plan view. You can see this gold zone is this higher grade zone where you've got intercepts like 117 metres at 1.8, 53 metres at 5. So we'll drill this 900 metres up on 50 metre spacing. Yeah, it'll be a significant resource, and hopefully this high grade does hang together and it's coherent, and that will be the key to developing this project. And again, if we don't like what we see in this resource, we'll reevaluate the whole project. The best place to spend the money here is effectively in Wallilan. That's where shareholders will get the best outcome. And then, assuming the resource is as we expect, we'll then move to a program on the 2 Colorado V main anomalies, where historically we had 450 million tonne target at better than 0.5 gram. The holes to date have certainly validated that. And those exploration targets, if you do the numbers, are sort of 4 to 5 million ounces on each of those 2 anomalies. The B anomaly probably only half that. It looks like the northern half is not mineralized, but again, very big system. So look, I'd like to say thanks to everyone and open it up for questions. And just to give you an idea, this shot was taken when I was over in Wallilan about 3 weeks ago. This is the view now as we're drilling holes sort of 700. You can see, it's changed totally. Roads up into the hills, and effectively, a drilling field where we're continuing with 3 rigs on site. So thanks for the time.
Thank you for that, Chris. We finally got there in the end. I'm not sure if everybody heard the rest of the presentation. My internet seems to be going down slightly, but look, we'll jump into a couple of questions. I know you have answered a few of these already, Chris, but just in case anyone's missed them. So in the past, there's been some comments from yourself regarding the data room and companies having access to that data room. Is this still ongoing, and what level of interest is there?
Look, it is, and there is quite a level of interest. What's happened basically with the market, I suppose, re-rating of not just us, but every gold company, is we've had a few approaches, desperate to get in, and my comments being, look, I'm happy to let you in, sign a 12-month standstill agreement, and if you won't, then you're not getting in the data room. And, we've had 3 or 4 companies decline to sign a 12-month standstill, so I have to take the view that we're not letting them in the data room at the current price. When they're happy to sign a 12-month standstill or roll forward 6 or 7 months and hopefully we're back where we should be, then we'll reconsider that. But yeah, definitely still a lot of interest, but getting knocked off with a cheeky bid at the current price doesn't really excite us. We can do a lot better.
Thanks, Chris. A few questions just on the assay results. So there appears to be a bit of a delay in the release of assays. Is there a reason for this, and when do you expect them to start coming through?
Yeah, look, there has been. And what we're in at the moment is we're in Canadian busy drilling season. So the assay turnaround time has gone basically from 30 days up to as high as 70 days. It's starting to come back down now a little. So we've been promised by the lab we'll get a fairly significant batch of results, if not next week, early the week after. I suppose philosophically, though, from that point of view, if the market thinks you come a raise, which the market had clearly thought we'll come a raise for the last 2 months, it's probably a good thing that we haven't had those results, because all that happens is you get selling into them. Whereas now that we've sort of got a raise out of the way, it's 2 parties, there'll be no selling. Good news becomes good news again. So yeah, look, I look forward to getting some results out, probably not next week, but early the week after, if the lab the lab should deliver on their promises to us.
Thanks, Chris. Again, you have answered this throughout the presentation, but when does CEL expect the revised JORC to be released?
So look, if the labs can continue to knock their turnaround time down, it'll be December. We're going to tell the market January just to give us some wriggle room. But if it's not December, I hope it is, it'll definitely be January.
Thanks for that. And just sticking with that, so what size resource do you think Pulliam will end up with?
Oh, look, I mean, from where we sit right now, we can see it being certainly more than 3. Will it get there in the current program? Don't know. There's been a fair bit of infill drilling, but certainly, it'll be bigger than 3 million ounces, and it's still open. It's probably one of those questions that, ask me in June next year after 250,000 meters of drilling, and I'll have a much better idea.
I'm going to ask you that exact same question for Ecuador as well then.
Ecuador, look, we think basically we got the other half of Cangrejos, and 20 million ounces is not going to surprise us at all. The real key there is what grade is it? Because if you've got 20 million ounces at 0.5 gram, it's the kind of thing that sits down the pecking order of a major. You can probably only fund it in a ultra high gold price environment. So that's why I think this next 25,000 meters is crucial to see if within that potential 20 million ounces at 0.5 gram to 0.6 of a gram, do we have a coherent 1 to 2 million ounce starter operation at better than a gram, with luck, maybe as high as, 1.5 grams.
There's a few other questions that have come through just on a potential SPP. Did you want to maybe have a comment on that one?
Look, I'd love to do an SPP at the same price that BlackRock have come in at. The problem I have when I look at our register is we've got about 500 holdings of 1 to 2 shares that are clearly there from groups that basically play SPPs. And unfortunately, what will happen is, those few thousand shareholders that would love to top up get swamped by those other holders that effectively arb them. And what happens is we consign our shareholders for the next 3 months to sitting there with the stock 0.5 cent below the SPP price, while all these arbs try to, make a penny at the expense of shareholders. So look, we probably won't, given that we can see all those holders with single shares on the register that are clearly there waiting for an SPP just to try and take advantage of shareholders.
Thanks, Chris. There's just another one on why you probably can't point to the specifics. Just about the data room again. Do we have any sort of the major players in there at the moment?
We do. Having said that, they're a major player that goes very slowly.
Wonderful. I think, and just finally, so what are you most excited about for sort of the next 3 to 6 months?
Oh, look, I'm basically excited about some of the holes we're drilling now in Argentina. I mean, we're drilling some holes that are a good, 300-400 meters north and south of the resource, and visually, got to wait for assays. They're hitting stuff. And what we're now seeing is we've been so busy chasing 9 rigs, we've done no regional exploration. And last time I was there, we noticed some old workings, 700 or 800 meters north of the resource where we'd never noticed those before. And again, my exploration manager gives me the call this morning and says, well, we're just going to lodge some samples from 2 kilometers north. We found some old workings that were not in any maps where it looks like we got manto at surface. So I think I'm looking forward to basically the next 6 to 12 months will let us know whether Wallalan has the potential to be a much larger deposit than 3 or 4 million ounces.
Wonderful, Chris. Well, I think that actually covers everything for today. So thank you all for joining us for the Challenger Exploration Investor webinar. A copy of today's recording will be available online in the coming days. And should we have missed any questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. But thank you all again.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. And thanks, Jane.